Y'all, and welcome to a brand new Parry's Pickups. Today we're going to be looking at PS2 games. I've picked up a few recently. A total of 6 PS2 games. And we'll start with Disney Golf. Now, I love a good golf game. And I was pretty confident in the quality of this title upon seeing it was developed by T&E Soft, who did Swing Away Golf, I think it's called, which I played very recently on the PS2 and loved. Fantastic golf game. This one's similar, not exactly the same. Of course, first of all, the major difference is this includes Disney characters rather than sort of generic anime style cute characters like Swing Away Golf does. But that's nice, the Disney characters are rendered really well, they look great actually. And there's a reasonable amount of them, with more to unlock as you progress through the game. I thought it was really fun. It's slightly different Swing Away Golf. It's got a more traditional power meter in terms of its appearance at least. Whereas Swing Away Golf is like some other golf games where you have like a sort of spherical meter that appears more in the centre of the screen around your golfer, whereas this one has the meter appearing at the bottom. What you do need to keep in mind is though that you kind of got to press your swing button in advance of when you actually want it to hit, which is a little confusing at first. It's a little bit like when you go from something like Virtua Tennis to Sega Superstars Tennis, which is quite different. But once you get the hang of that, it's okay. It does add an extra level of strategy to the game, but can be initially off-putting, I'd say. But off-putting, how about that? Sorry, excuse the pun. What I did like about this is you get power-ups. You can pick several power-ups before the game, and they allow you to do stuff like get a bit more power on your shot. That's the only one I can remember at the moment, but there are a few to help you out along the way. So it does add an extra element of strategy and customizability. Is that a word? To the game. So this is a quality golf game. I think it's, if you're thinking of getting this game as my first golf game, so maybe your kid likes Disney characters and you think this is a good entry-level golf game, I'd say it isn't. I'd say try Mario Golf, because the timing on your swing is a lot more forgiving on that than it is on this. You really got to adjust to this, and yeah, it is a golf simulator pretty much, so don't expect this to be a walk in the park. But I really enjoyed it, and it's a quality golf game and very affordable. It's about £1.50 at CX in Manchester, I think. And the next game is Urban Reign, which sort of rhymes, I think. Urban Reign is a story-based brawler, similar to the Tekken Force mode in some of the later Tekken games. I think from Tekken 3 onwards you had Tekken Force mode, which is like a side-scrolling beat-em-up type thing. Of course, being Namco, and if you've played Tekken Force, you know that gameplay is incredibly smooth, especially in the later versions of it. This game feels great to play. It's got a really neat countering mechanic where if you tap the square button in time with the opponent's punches, you'll be able to dodge them, put yourself more of an advantage over the opponent, so you'll be able to maybe get behind them and deliver some blows that way. If you vary your direction of attack when pressing your attack button, so if you move your stick in different directions, you'll do high, low, medium attacks, and everything just flows together really well. There's a storyline going on here. If you see on the front, you've got your main character, forget his name, and this lady here is someone you team up with at the beginning of the game. You're basically a hired brawler type guy who's taking down rival gang members, going for King of the Urban Reign or whatever. I honestly, I didn't pay much attention to the storyline, so I just wanted to get into the gameplay so I could talk a little bit about it on this episode. But, you know, this seems like it's pretty well done. I'm fairly sure this is Steve Bloom voicing the main character. Steve Bloom, famous for, probably most famous for Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, so some quality voice acting work in here, and yeah, it's definitely got a story to keep you playing. Can't really comment on that, but the cutscenes seemed rather well done. So that's Urban Reign. I'd recommend that. It's a good game. I've got a game very similar to Urban Reign here, and that is Beatdown Fists of Vengeance, again for the PS2. You may have seen this in the bonus episode of Parry's Pickups, where I received this one from good friend and fellow Blast Processor Mike Davis, and it's alright actually. Yeah, it's maybe doesn't feel quite as smooth as Urban Reign. It's a very similar type of game, but you've got kind of a more open world map area you explore in this game, in a similar way to Final Fight Streetwise, again on the PS2. So you can interact with characters, and you can choose where you want to start a fight with them, or leave them be, or negotiate. And it's a similar concept, you know, there's rival gangs on the street and you're part of one gang, and you kind of, again, I did not pay any attention to the story, and there was a lot of story in this, especially before you could actually get into any kind of gameplay. There was a lot of cutscenes that I skipped because I wanted to play the game, again, talk about it. But there's plenty of story here. Whether it's good story or not, I'm not sure at this point. Gameplay is solid though. I enjoyed the weapons in the combat, and the controls are really easy. Most of the things you need to do that aren't punching and kicking are put on the R1 button. For example, if you need to take a weapon from an enemy, you press R1. If you need to throw an enemy, it's R1. And then there's regular kind of punch and kicks, and sometimes if you're against a particularly powerful opponent, it'll go into more of a side-scrolling, I won't say side-scrolling, more one-on-one situation. You can still walk around the character you're fighting, but it will turn into, or feels more like a traditional fighter rather than a brawler. So actually, there's a lot to appreciate about this game. Where the combat, as I say, wasn't as smooth as Urban Reign, it was still very solid and enjoyable. The open world idea seems cool, but what I didn't like was the amount of loading between parts of the game, and it did take me a while to get to a point where I could do where I could save the game. I think that's quite an interesting way of doing it as well, because you speak to a reporter and then she writes down a report of your progress. So that was quite a fun way of saving the game, I thought. But yeah, save points seem few and far between, and again, a lot of loading in this game, so you know. Next up, Twisted Metal Black. My experience of Twisted Metal series is fairly limited. I've played some of the original Twisted Metal. That's the one I've played the most. And I've played similar games like Star Wars Demolition or Vigilante 8, or even Critical Depth, which is Twisted Metal Underwater. For viewers of previous episodes may have heard of that game as well. So Twisted Metal Black is a very solid package. The graphics are really good in this game, really nice. The controls are extremely good as well, and you'll get to grips with them in no time at all. I played a little bit of the multiplayer, 2-player mode on this, and it's a quality title. It's probably the best of this sort of vehicle-based combat game I've played. So if you're interested in vehicle-based combat type games with great visuals, solid controls, then I think Twisted Metal Black is a wonderful package. And for an earlier PS2 game, it's a very solid, enjoyable game, with 4-player multi-tap support as well. Next up, a game I got for 75p, again from CX. That game is The Getaway. I've previously played Getaway Black Monday, but was still very curious about playing the original Getaway, because what enticed me to this game is this idea that they've made a digital recreation of London, and the idea of exploring digital London I thought would be pretty cool. Visuals are solid but greyish and dreary. Of course, with a game set in London, you're going to expect a similar quite dull looking visuals. It's a bit of a shame, because sometimes, you know, London is stunning. But yeah, so I hope maybe there's some changes in weather, but at the moment it looks pretty drab. Graphics are okay, not the best I've ever seen, but suitably sort of gritty, and there's enough detail in there. What I wasn't sure about was, of course this is like Grand Theft Auto. You can steal cars. The majority of the gameplay is driving around in cars from what I've played. I think there's definitely some on foot sections in this game. How well they play, I'm not sure yet, because I've only played the beginning of the game, and I got into a car chase fairly early on. But car chases feel slow. This game seems to be going for realism as opposed to over the top fun. So the cars go rather slowly, and they're controlled by holding down the X button. It uses this the touch sensitive X face buttons on the PlayStation controller. What I mean by that is more pressure sensitive. You know, the PlayStation 2 controller can tell how much you're pressing a button in, and that's meant to use that to either increase or decrease acceleration, but it doesn't work so well in my opinion. Much better with the analog triggers on the PS3 controller. Anytime I think that a studio tries to implement this pressure sensitive buttons on the face buttons, at least it doesn't work for me, so that was a bit of a letdown. But what was quite neat was how you followed the car you were chasing. Your indicator would tell you which turning you need to take in order to follow the car, which was a really unobtrusive kind of way of indicating the direction you need to go in, rather than having a giant arrow over the screen. So definitely this game really tried to go for some realism, and it's fairly solid, but I'm not 100% sold on it yet. But for 75p, anything can really go wrong, especially since this is a nice condition copy of the game, complete with the check age now sticker on the back. This is a very adult game, and it's definitely worthy of its 18 certificate. And lastly, my pick of the bunch this time round for PS2 would be Ribbit King, which is more than just a golf game, it's a frolf game. Frolf is the name given to frog golf, the type of golf you play in this game, which involves placing a frog down in front of you on a small little catapult, hitting said catapult with a hammer to propel the frog towards the goal. Along the way, if you hit certain things, you'll get extra points, but you've still got to try and get the frog in the hole in the least amount of turns as possible. Really nice. I love how occasionally your frog will land near a fly, and if you do land near a fly, you can eat the fly for extra points. It all sounds very surreal, and I'm sure this will be helped by some accompanying gameplay footage, so hopefully that is doing a little bit to explain what this game is all about. But it's quite wonderful, and I love the characters, I love the presentation, and its unique gameplay is just so enjoyable. It just takes that idea of a golf game, which is very solid to begin with, and then just has a lot of fun with it and adds a lot of original elements to it. Fantastic characters, I've got to say, hilarious characters. I think Ribbit King is a fantastic game. It's also available for the GameCube. That's a slightly more expensive version of the game. I'd say if you have a PS2, then you should really pick up the PS2 version if you want to save some money, because it's a lot cheaper, and from what I've played, it's just as solid as the GameCube version. I can't imagine a GameCube version being any much better than this version, because it plays perfectly well, in my opinion. So that is Ribbit King, and that is the last game in this latest Parry's Pickups. Thanks again for checking out the video. Do hope you've enjoyed it and maybe found some games in it you've not heard of before, or maybe it gives you just a better idea of what some of these games are all about if you're thinking about picking any of them up. Okay, until next time, game on. Bye for now.